The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It pounded the rooftops like war drums and turned the quiet town of Willow Creek into a murky mess of flooded streets, overturned bins, and trembling hearts. Clara Evans stood by the window of her modest two-bedroom home, clutching a steaming mug of tea as she watched the water rise across her yard. At 42, Clara was no stranger to hardship. She had weathered loss before. Her husband's unexpected passing 6 years ago had left a silence so deep that even thunder couldn't fill it. But she had survived, leaning on her small-town resilience and her deep belief that kindness still mattered, especially when the world seemed so cruel. It was nearing midnight when she heard the knock. Soft at first, barely audible over the storm's roar. She paused, heart racing. Another knock, this time louder, more desperate. She hesitated only a moment before rushing to the door, the old wooden floor cold beneath her bare feet. When she opened it, the wind howled into her home, and there, drenched and shivering, stood a stranger. He was young, maybe late 20s, with soaked hair plastered to his forehead and panic in his eyes. "Please," he gasped, I didn't know where else to go. The roads flooded. My car's stuck. I didn't want to sleep in the storm." Clara studied him for a beat. He looked harmless, frightened, more lost than threatening. His hands trembled as he tried to shield his face from the wind. Against all logic and without knowing his name, she stepped aside. "Come in," she said softly. The man, surprised, blinked at her, then hurried inside. He left a trail of muddy water behind him, but Clara didn't mind. "Thank you," he whispered, voice cracking. "I didn't expect anyone to open the door." "I'm Clara," she said, handing him a towel. "The guest room's a mess, but it's warm." "I'm Adam," he replied, still catching his breath. "Thank you, really. I didn't know if I'd make it." Clara nodded, gave him a small smile, and went to put on a kettle. For the next few hours, they sat in the living room as the floodwater crept dangerously close to her porch. They shared hot soup and exchanged small fragments of their stories. Adam was a software engineer, traveling from state to state, unsure of where he truly belonged after a bitter divorce and a failed startup that had wiped out his savings. He had no destination in mind when he left his last motel, only the hope that he might find a place where the air felt lighter. As the storm howled through the night, something settled quietly between them, a shared understanding of brokenness and quiet endurance. Neither of them said it aloud, but they both knew what it was to feel adrift, to ache for connection and not know where to find it. Over the next 2 days, the flood worsened. Power flickered on and off, and the streets outside became small rivers. Clara and Adam became reluctant roommates, each contributing in small ways. Adam cooked breakfast the second morning, surprised Clara with a dry sense of humor, and even fixed the broken hinge on her pantry door. Clara, meanwhile, listened to his stories, shared her late husband's favorite records, and found herself laughing more than she had in years. On the third morning, when the sky finally cleared and the sun peeked through, Clara stood outside with Adam, watching as the floodwaters began to recede. The worst was over. But in her heart, something new had started. "I should get going soon," Adam said, stuffing his hands into his pockets. "You've done more than enough." Clara felt a strange tug in her chest. "You don't have to rush off," she said quietly. "I mean, if you need time, until the roads are clear." He looked at her, and in his eyes was something unspoken, a gratitude deeper than words. "Thank you, Clara. You didn't even know me, and yet you looked like you needed help," she interrupted gently. "Sometimes that's all it takes." He smiled. Still, it meant everything. Over the next week, Adam stayed. He helped rebuild parts of Clara's shed, cleared out her basement, and even installed a better sump pump, refusing to let her pay for it. They talked about books, about dreams that never came true, about how sometimes losing everything can make room for something better. Clara's neighbors began to notice her brighter smile, the extra coffee mug on the porch table, the way her laughter returned like an old friend. But then came the morning when Adam announced he'd found a job offer, one that could change his future. A small tech company, not far from Willow Creek, had seen his freelance work online and wanted to bring him on board. He could stay local, start over. But he needed to be closer to the office, about an hour away. Clara congratulated him with genuine joy, but her heart sank. She had opened her home expecting nothing, but in return, she had gained something she hadn't dared hope for, a connection, a friendship that warmed her like sunlight after years of cold. On the day he packed his car, Adam turned to her and said, "Clara, I don't know how to thank you. That night you let me in, you didn't just give me shelter. You gave me a chance to breathe again. You brought life back to this house," she replied softly. "And to me." He stepped closer, hesitated. "Would it be okay if I came back? Sometimes?" She looked up at him, eyes shining. "Only if you bring your laugh with you." He chuckled, then leaned in and kissed her cheek, a simple, tender gesture that spoke of beginnings. 3 months passed. The flood was a distant memory, but its aftermath lingered. Clara received regular visits from Adam, who would bring her pastries from his new neighborhood bakery and updates on his job. He began to call Willow Creek his second home. Eventually, second turned into first. On a warm spring afternoon, under the very oak tree that had once nearly fallen in the flood, Adam knelt on one knee, not with a ring, but with a promise. A promise to stay, to build, to cherish the chance she gave him. "I came here as a stranger," he said, his voice trembling, "but you saw me as a person. And because of that, I found not just shelter, but a future. Clara, would you let me stay for good?" Tears welled in Clara's eyes as she nodded. "Yes. Stay. Let's make this house a home." The neighbors would say it was fate. Others called it coincidence. But Clara knew the truth: when you open your heart without expecting anything in return, sometimes life gives you everything back. Because one act of kindness can be the start of everything.